Hi, my name is Malik, and this is the Folly Cabin.
This video is sponsored by Dylan Magaster. Check out our new channel by clicking the link and be sure to subscribe.
I was working for a boutique firm in Los Angeles, a lot of high-end residential projects, different producers and directors in and around the Hollywood area. I think what was really hard for me was pouring myself into these high-end residential projects, and then they go up behind green hedges and you have to step back. For me, that was a bit like, oh wow, so I have to kind of let that go. This was simply an exploration of my passion and what I wanted to explore in architecture, and doing it out of my own pocket and just kind of focusing on what was here, which was a 1954 homestead on an existing concrete slab, and it was a ramshackle that was run down, and being able to do it out in Joshua Tree was a really therapeutic way to figure out where I wanted to start my practice. So it was a wayfinding experiment in one way or another. We're using a lot of materials. The interior finishes are just simple plywood. So I was trying to kind of keep it as tight as possible because it was all just out of pocket. Growing up in Jordan, we used to sleep on my grandparents' rooftop all the time and stargaze because it was just so beautiful there. And while building this place, we would, be camping. We also stargazed at the same time. So I was responding to the environment and being like, I want to sleep outside. And it kind of took me back to my childhood, and even having waking moments throughout the night. You can see the sky changing constantly as it greets you every time you kind of open your eyes and look up. The most difficult part of building Folly was working with the amount of space that was already given with the existing footprint, but that was one of the parameters that I set for myself. Grafting the existing infrastructure of the homestead cabin that was here from the 1950s and keeping that history there while kind of driving the roof up and creating more space vertically. I wanted to have less materials, less clutter, just to keep it a really simple form. Having a weathering steel that responds to the environment, because it was silver when we first installed it. I knew with time, wind, water, and the sun, it was gonna rust, and it was going to be kind of my take on what a rusty cabin in the desert looks like. Hot air gets released through these skylights, which is a great way for it to vent out, but also to vent the space and keep the air fresh inside the space. And we have one on either side of the cabin, so on the south-facing side and the north-facing side. Window placements on the south side of the cabin are intentionally smaller than the north side, so that way it keeps as much of the direct light out, but also allows for the different views to provide moments of relief from the steel. As you can see, there's different seams that run through the cabin. That was really important to have that continuity start, from the desert surface all the way up to the roof line, and thinking about how to integrate a concealed gutter in there so you're not having to tack on something later on. Especially with a small form like this, keeping it really simple is always more impactful. As you make your way towards this side of the Folly Cabin, it's just a storage closet. It's, again, more of that same language and continuing that. So you look at the form of both structures together, it just looks like it's been sliced in the middle. It just has like an outdoor light, vent, and essentially a floodlight at nighttime, just in case we needed to see what's going on over there. But then you can have that completely turned off to not disrupt any stargazing from the hammocks and the hangout area here. A lot of people don't even like to see the panels. They plug them on the roof. It's kind of like an afterthought, or like, oh yeah, we should get those panels up there. Really wanted to display that and make it something that people can look at and appreciate. Having it up tilted at the proper solar orientation keeps the panels as productive as possible. And then here is just where we keep the firewood. It still needs to be stacked. The propane tank and a backup generator also, just in case. Just a picnic grill here. The bonfire pit was made up of leftover steel that we found with just some really simple tree stumps for seating. And then providing the relief between the two forms is this void in the middle. So it brings the indoors out and vice versa. This deck, it's just a simple horse trough cowboy tub with some cactus that we put in here. Drought tolerant planting is always a good idea in the desert. An outdoor shower behind me. And then the drainage is actually just right below the deck here, and it drains out, and it's a part of the Great Water system that waters these shrubs that you can see, and you can tell the difference between what's getting hit with water from the Great Water system versus what's like on the surrounding property. The ladder on this side is essentially gas pipes with what they use on tennis rackets. And we just wrapped this to give it a bit more cushion. You can even tell with the doorway to the stargazing suite, it was looking at where the metal seams was ending up, how you're maneuvering your way up there and coming back down, and where each bar should go, and how to keep you secure as much as possible while you make your way up there. It has a queen bed, side tables, telescope, bioethanol fireplace here, and a beautiful view out to the mountains and the sky. A really simple table for morning coffee. I mean, staying up here definitely has its own magic just because it changes every night, and it's a great place to even just hang out for an afternoon or read a book, watch the birds and things like that. It's definitely an awesome place to hang out. The door is actually an extension of the side elevation of the wall, and so it just completes the form when you close it. And so the idea is that to keep the architecture all continuous, even if it's folded this way, it just looks like origami. Fold in, it's beautiful, and you can look out that way. And then on this side, you can see the windows get a lot bigger. You have the windows for the shower, for the wet room, and then common area, living, kitchen, and that skylight that I was talking about earlier. This is a hotspot energy, and this is how we heat and cool the space. We place it on the north side so it doesn't get roasted by the sun. So welcome to the inside of the Folly Cabin. It's a pretty open space with the living area on this side, the dining area on this end, and keeping the open volume ceiling gives the space a larger feel than what it really is in footprint. The materiality in the plywood you can see throughout the cabin interiors are just 4x8 sheets. Where you see that change happen is with the plaster behind me, and this plaster kind of marks the more utilitarian aspect of the cabin, which is where the kitchen is, the wet room, the toilet, and that sets the precedent up for the loft, which is right above that. It was inexpensive material, but at the same time, it draws your eyes out. And the windows, instead of having artwork in here, I just looked at the outside being the artwork. Keeping it as neutral as possible keeps your eye outside, which is the whole goal of this thing, is to keep that eye drying out. The floor is actually the original concrete slab from 1954. All I did was seal the slab, but you can still see all of the rust marks and all the different elements that kind of happened over the past 70 years. Didn't want the TV to be the center focus of the space at all. When you come in, you don't even see it until you have to turn around and look at it. And more storage. Had this local artist do this really cool sketch of the ramshackle of the 1954 homestead and kind of what it became. This table seats 6. Really wanted to think about the hallway space in here, keeping it clear, but also being able to have somebody sit on this side of the sofa and this side of the table without their backs to each other. It also kind of makes this a common area to hang out as well. So there's no space that is left unused. And then at nighttime, if you wanted to sleep down here, you just pull these guys out and fold out the sofa, and this turns into a nice sized queen bed with storage on either side. These are from IKEA. It just comes in a bunch of different pieces, but you can design the sofa for the space. The kitchen wanted to do really simple black fixtures, propane, gas cooktop, and then just having drawers that maximize storage for utensils and just all the things that you would need for grilling outside. Upper storage for bowls, plates, and whatnot. And then on this side, fridge, freezer, kind of upper cabinetry. The reused gas pipe again that we saw outside, and then having that go up to this loft that's divided by these 4x8s. And it's just a really simple way to divide space without having a physical wall. Keeps the air circulation moving, keeps the light bleeding through. It's a queen bed. It has 2 leading lights on either end, and then it faces the skylight that faces north, which is a nice way to bleed in light. It has a blackout shade operated via iPad or your iPhone. The bed is heated, which is nice for colder nights. And yeah, that's pretty much up here. So simple loft sleeping area. Run the whole thing via iPad, turn on the lights, turn off the lights, and it tells you the humidity levels and the air temperatures, which are all integrated with the skylights and them automatically opening and venting the space to keep it fresh. So I had to figure out a way to get the Wi-Fi signal to work, router, speaker, music, things of that nature, kind of accessible and in the middle between the indoors and outdoor space. So while you're grilling, you can listen to music. And so that was a great way to integrate all that stuff in there without having to see it. I decided to split the bathroom into 2 functions, which is the wet room and then the water closet. This way, both functions can be used simultaneously if there is 4 to 6 people here. And having a toilet with a bidet function keeps toilet paper down when dealing with septic, gray water, and black water systems. And then behind me is a full-blown wet room with a rain shower head, a boulder for bench seating, and a view out to the north. Makes you want to stay in there a little bit longer and enjoy the outside while being inside. As humans, we kind of just come and, make things our own because we can and wreck things that are around us. And it's always trying to find how do we do that maybe a little bit better instead of it just being green label sustainability. I just don't like the idea of a copy and paste. And I know that we have the suburbs and housing and shelters are really important parts of, living your day in and day out. And one theme that just kept kind of coming up for me and figuring out my position was just think about also the impact that you're making. Really understanding the context, the surrounding area. From there, you start to get inspired by all sorts of different things, whether it's the tribes that were here, hundreds of years ago, thinking about the landscape, the environment. All of that to me starts to build a story, and from there start to look at the context of the actual property and the placement of the building, passive design. Each context or each property that you're in comes up with a different result. Thinking about how to complement what is already being offered by Mother Nature, essentially.
Thank you for watching this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe and hit the like button. And if you really love what we create here at FLORB, we're working hard to bring you more, better, higher quality content. And so if you would like to support us, consider clicking the link in the description and joining the community on Patreon, and you can support the channel through that. So if you love what we do, consider checking out our Patreon page, and thank you for watching. Have a great week. Big love. Peace out.